There was a mechanic, an old mechanic, and all these mechanics, they're old with all this wisdom. And he would always say, he'd get called out to the field and he would look at the system and he said, it's not the pump. And that kind of became a saying of mine where somebody says, oh, it's doing this. Well, it's not the pump.
Welcome to the Empowering Industry Podcast, a production from Empowering Pumps and Equipment as the voice of the pump and related equipment industries. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Empowering Industry Podcast. I'm your host, Charlie Matthews, and I am excited to be with Robert Perez today. I have known him for many years. He actually has over 40 years experience as a mechanical engineer, and I'm just really excited to be here I'm going to let him kind of introduce himself and get going about how he was in the industry. But I just want to say, Robert, it's so good to see you. I love seeing you at shows. I've been talking about your Pump Wisdom book lately too. So there's just been some really just, I guess, memorable experiences we've had together over the years at events, and it's just great to get you on the mic.
Hey, Charlie, good to see you. And thanks for inviting me to come on here. And just so for people that don't know me, I'm a mechanical engineer, licensed 40 years. I've been in all the phases of petrochemical. I've been in refineries, chemical plants, pipelines. So pretty much done a little bit of everything, and kind of fortunate I've been able to see a lot of different kinds of equipment, from centrifugal pumps, compressors, gas turbines.
And you have to let everybody know that you are a Aggie alumni, so that's definitely worth bragging about, especially in our pump industry.
Yeah, well, what people don't know about me is that I got a bachelor's in Texas at Texas A&M, and I got a master's at the University of Texas. So, but I'm an Aggie all the way.
Okay, I was wondering where it was going.
Yeah.
So go Aggies there. I will definitely pull for y'all when you are not playing against Alabama.
Oh,
But what is I know you're retired, so what does that look like?
okay. Well, I'm semi-retired, but really mainly I just write. I do a lot of writing, and every once in a while I'll get a lot of questions off of LinkedIn. Of course, people want I don't want to, I guess it's free consulting. They have a quick question or whatever. So I get a lot of questions off of LinkedIn, and I've done a little bit of consulting. I was an expert witness one time, which took a couple of months of my life, but mainly just writing and taking care of my grandkids.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a full house, four grandkids, so that does keep you busy, right? Do you ever have them all at the same time?
Oh yeah, yeah, and it's a zoo.
Absolutely. It
You
takes
know,
a
I
lot of
know
energy.
I know people. I knew this one guy that had like 10 grandkids, and I don't know how that would happen. But anybody that has grandkids knows that it starts slow, and then as they get to a certain age, it just keeps speeding up, and they just do more and more and more. So they do take a lot of time, and my wife loves it, so we're very happy.
Awesome, awesome. Well, tell people how you got into the industry.
Okay, well, I've always liked math and science, and so it naturally gravitated to engineering. And so I went to Texas A&M, like I said, and but when I got a bachelor's in mechanical engineering. When I went to the University of Texas, I really got into the field what's called dynamics. Dynamics is a very broad area, controls, and I actually got into a little rotor dynamics. And so coming out of Texas, I've really felt like I had a lot of all the basics for machinery. And in my first job, if anybody's ever been in a refinery, they know one thing: there's equipment everywhere. And so they asked me, well, could you kind of start our vibration analysis group, which was really, really nice to get that opportunity. And so it just keep getting more and more involved in machinery. And then, of course, with machinery, you get involved with vibration, troubleshooting, And then eventually I got into the reliability group. And so I was pretty fortunate because that was in the 80s when reliability really wasn't a big deal. Everybody mainly just tried to maintain their equipment. Nobody really thought about improving reliability because they really didn't know how to do it. It really wasn't a science. And so that was a great opportunity, kind of ground floor, to kind of learn about troubleshooting, learn about redesigning equipment, writing repair procedures, all that kind of stuff.
So I'm curious about this with your writing. What kind of got you started with writing? How did you know that that was a passion of yours?
Yeah, writing, I could talk about it all the time, but I had a friend. Everybody has a friend that was a big reader, and I don't know if I'm sure people have heard the book Contact, and great book, Carl Sagan. And so she said, you need to read that book, and I read it, very well written. And then I thought, man, I didn't know people could write technical writing that was so interesting. And also I read there were some other technical magazines that I read that were very well written. And so I thought, well, could I do that? Could I really, because as a kid, I really didn't consider myself a writer. And so this lady was saying, oh yeah, she really kind of pumped me up. And then, the way you start writing, and I always tell people the same thing, you start by writing articles, columns, whatever, and people have to encourage you. You've got to have a mentor. And I'm always disappointed because I got a call from a guy he's a process engineer, and he was a writer, and he said, "Oh, I'm so lonely because nobody ever writes, and I can't ever talk to anybody about writing." And so really technical writers are very rare. So I think first thing you have to do, like I said, you've got to read technical writing that you like. Most of it's pretty bland, pretty blah. But there are some good technical books out there, and you gotta read what you're going to write. And so, and I had a friend, he was a lifelong friend, and he would say, "How do you do it?" And I said, "You got to wake up every morning, and you got to write a little bit." And Charlie, I don't know if you do the same, that you've got to write something.
I want to write a book and I have a lot of words. Mine is figuring out what message to send out. So that's the hard part for me. But yeah, I've heard so many times that you got to set aside a certain part of the day and write consistently. So you use that muscle. So I think that's great advice. And okay, so you've been writing technical papers, everything, and then you got to your first book. Tell us about that.
Okay, I'm trying to remember. It was an editor. Well, it was for Pumps and Systems. Mike Riley.
Yes, I love
You,
Mike Riley.
did you work
If
with?
he's listening to this, he was such a just a good part of my life there for sure.
Yeah. Well, he always encouraged me to write columns, and he was. I think he was the one that said, it's very rare to find engineers that want to write. So he encouraged me, and so I went to him with the idea. I said, "Look, I have this idea for a book for centrifugal pumps for operators. Just be a real basic." In fact, first time I told my wife, I told her it was going to be like a pamphlet because I didn't really have a lot of ideas, and I really didn't know what to do. And so, the way that I started writing a book is I said, look, just write a chapter. And that's what I did. I sat down and wrote that first chapter, and it was, I can't remember what it was, but I always think in terms of word length. So it was like 4,000 words or whatever. And I thought, man, I can't believe I wrote 4,000 words. But it's like you said, you sit down every morning and then you write so many words, and then eventually you have all these. And of course, I found out that everything I wrote was awful. And that's part of it. You go back, and I didn't want to edit anything. I thought, man, I don't like editing, but that comes with it. Then you go back and you read everything, and you edit. And then, of course, and my wife has been my editor, and And usually she says, well, this doesn't make sense. Okay, well, we'll rewrite it. So that's another part of writing, that you have to be disciplined, and then you have to be willing to go back and say, this is bad. And I hear that all the time, where it doesn't matter what it is, a songwriter, a writer, whatever, they always, or anybody, they'll say, man, my first stuff was so bad. And that's part of it.
Yeah, I remember my first Facebook Live, and when I look at it, I'm like, oh my gosh, that was terrible. So yeah, I mean, that's part of look, you got to look at it so you can improve. And then also now sometimes you look at what you've done, you're like, hey, that's pretty good. And that's
Yeah,
rewarding too, right?
right. Yeah. And so not only writing, but I've had opportunities, some of my books that I've written where I have to edit other people. And I thought, I'm not good enough to be an editor, but yet you become an editor.
Mm.
And then you have to, give pointers and decide, order of material or whatever. And so, it's a gradual thing. And I've been, I think I wrote my first technical article in like 87, 88. So that's that's a long time, a long, long time. And then wrote my first book in, I think it was 2008. Yeah, it says right here. Yeah, 2008. So
And it was published in 2025.
no, no, no,
What is
no,
that?
no.
Oh, the process
No, that's
machinery.
the range that my first book was in 2008, and then I just finished the one in 2025.
Yeah, awesome. So 15 books so far. They're out there for everyone to look at, to buy, to purchase on Amazon or wherever. I don't
Yeah,
where
most of
they
them
can.
Amazon, most of them Amazon.
Yeah. So what are you working on now?
Okay, well, I'm always working on columns. I write for Gas Compression Magazine mainly, and I've written for others, but they're my main job there. But of course, I just finished this troubleshooting book, and I'm always working on the next book. I have a book that I'm working on that's it's kind of a consolidation of everything I've written for operators. For some reason, I have a friend, Julian LeBlue, that's has a passion for helping operators, and we're always writing things for operators, and so that's the next book. Will have hopefully a lot of tips and information for process operators.
So why did you write the book? Tell us about it.
Okay, well, the latest one on troubleshooting um, centrifugal pump field problems. Also, it took me a long time to come up with that title. Everybody think, what? Because I wanted to know that it's troubleshooting centrifugal pumps in the field. And that's always a difference because a lot of books are very technical, and they get involved in design of the pump, and I didn't want to do that. So, but as a I worked in plants for 40 years, and so I had to do a lot of troubleshooting. And so everybody that does pump troubleshooting knows you go into you find this troubleshooting matrix, and it's okay. You go down and you say low flow. What does it mean? And it'll have something there. Okay, or vibration, it goes right there. And after doing this enough time, I realized it's never that simple. You can't just go to a table. If it's true, well, I guess everybody believed it because there's only been tables for 30 years. And so what it kind of hit me one day, and I guess eventually this book could be created into like an app or software or whatever, but I had to put it into a book. A friend of mine told me, any idea you have, the first thing you have to do is put it on paper. If you can't put it on paper, then it's not a viable method. So that's what I attempted to do, is to put it into a book. And so the first question, anytime you walk up to a pump and somebody tells you, oh, it's doing this or it's doing that. Well, the first question is, what kind of pump is it? And I don't know if everybody listening has the experience with pumps, but the first question is, what kind of suction system does it have? some pumps have flooded suctions, some have suction lift pumps they're very unique. And then you have those that are submersed. And so that kind of opens everything up. Instead of having a table that just is real simple, it's kind of a decision tree. So the first question is, what kind of pump is it? What kind of system? And so that was kind of the idea. But then I realized as I wrote, sorry about that, as I started writing, I realized there's so much that you have to know about pumps. You can't just know it's a centrifugal pump. A lot of people think it's just like a black box. But then you got to know, well, what kind of suction system, what kind of design is it? And so then I had to write all these other chapters. I'm just going to show the book real quick. But in the back, there are a lot of appendices that cover all kinds of issues. For example, here's a real quick one. If a pump, they say it's cavitating. Well, is it cavitating or is it internal recirculation? Um, so actually, I think, the back of the book really has a lot of material that's never been published before. So you can learn a lot about centrifugal pumps just by reading the book and reading the appendix.
Well, I love that. And it seems like that's pretty easy. Just look it up in the back what you're dealing with, and it'll have something to kind of help in that troubleshooting process.
Yeah, and just a shout out, Julian LeBlue. I call him Sonny LeBlue. Do you know Sonny?
Yes.
Okay.
I met him through you.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, he helped me organize the book, and he wanted to make it very easy to use. So when you open the book up in the table of contents, it'll tell you like, okay, guide for flooded suctions. So if you have a flooded suction pump with little or no flow, it tells you what page to go to. So it kind of helped me organize it. And he really liked the overall design of the book. But I would say the book is really my 40 years of experience around pumps. I've seen a lot of problems, and a lot of problems are common, but there are a lot of uncommon problems. And so I try to, include all the different issues. And some people might say horror stories in the field. And so it has a lot of experience,
Well,
of
we're so thankful that you did that. We talk about it all the time, right? The knowledge that is going to be lost. And so anytime that we can get people to write it down, do videos, capture it, that's going to help us in the future. So thank you for doing that. Is there anything else that you want to leave our listeners with before I let you go? I could talk to you forever. So just kind of last comments.
yeah, I did want to say that there's people would ask, well, why do I need this book? And the main reason is that if you want to avoid repairs, there was a mechanic, an old mechanic, and all these mechanics, they're old with all this wisdom. And he would always say, he'd get called out to the field, and he would look at the system and he said, it's not the pump. And that kind of became a saying of mine where somebody says, oh, it's doing this. Well, it's not the pump. And so that's kind of the purpose, that if there's a decision tree in the book, and as you go down it, really there are always four things you can do. There may be more, but four basic things. And that is, you can go up to a pump and somebody says, oh, this pump has this funny noise, or it's do this, or it's warm. Well, the four things you can do, you can either do nothing, which saves money. You can modify the process conditions, which costs very little money. Or you can adjust the machine, like you can balance it, lubricate it, which is very little bit money, or you can repair it, which costs a lot of money. So that's kind of the idea, that if you go up to, you really want to know, do I need to do anything? Um, and so this decision tree, it kind of walks you through it. You start at the top and you say, okay, it's got vibration or whatever. And so hopefully you'll go down the leg that says do nothing. Everything's fine. Don't worry about it. And so, but the things that I'd like to leave with, I guess we're running out of time. is always look at the whole system. Take a systemic approach to any problem. And that the book is full of system ideas. Do you have high points in your suction line, whatever. And then also, customize the approach based on the actual system. Is it flooded, lift, submerged, suction? But also the thing that I've learned is always take a evidence-based approach. That is, go to the field, gather data, observe, and if you can, look at the pump in operation under actual conditions. Um, and I guess that's really the most important thing is go to the field, and it's not always the pump. Okay.
Yeah, y'all, you must have said that quite some, many times because I've picked up on that and I always say it. It's rarely the pump, right? And so I loved kind of the part y'all follow the advice in his book. This is what he put on there. It's most likely the cause of the problem. He's figured it out. He's done it. He's been in in this industry for 40 years. He's seen it. He's written about it. And I'm pretty sure you probably even have solved some problems that weren't your own, right? Sounds like from all of the questions that you get. So just a
Yeah.
wealth of knowledge.
Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of some. Everybody thinks it's the pump design. It's not the pump design. It's usually a system design, or it could be the way that the pump was put in operation. And so you see a lot with pumps, and I've heard some crazy stories, but I think that's pretty much it. Always, but go to the field, and that's something that engineers don't always want to go to the field, and sometimes they have to drag you out there. And also, go to the shop and talk to the mechanics, and talk to people, and that's always good advice is to talk to the operator around the pump to say, well, when did this occur? Timing is also important. When did the problem occur? So gather that data.
Well, I have to do a little rapid fire with you before I let you go. And that's just a couple quick questions. One, what is your favorite book? That's got to be the hardest question ever.
Well, I just mentioned Contact, and I would have to stay with that one at this point.
Awesome. What about music? You listen to any kind of music?
I'm a really boring guy, but I like the Beatles. Listen to
Awesome.
everything about them. Okay,
What is the best advice you've ever received?
get as get your educate yourself as much as you can.
And
Education is gold.
and then what advice would you give somebody coming into the pump and compressor industries?
Study and go to the field and talk to mechanics. Well, I guess if I could say one thing there, I've learned the most about machinery in repair shops. So I would say spend as much time in repair shops as you can.
Awesome. Well, I love that. I'm going to send that quote out to several people that I think will appreciate that. And I appreciate you. Thanks for all of the things that you've done, the writing, the inspiration, and just like I said, being able to see you at shows. I feel fortunate that I got to do that. And just thank you for what you've done to create a wealth of knowledge for our industry.
Okay, thank you, Charlie.
For everyone else, share this episode. We got a legend on here. You got to share it with everybody. And like, subscribe, do all that great things. And until next time, be empowering.